Hey there. We're in the middle of a work day. I'm taking a quick break, and Jason, of course, is doing online school because of all the craziness going on in this world. And I just wanted to do a real quick video. First of all, last night my batteries were like at 3%, so I couldn't even continue the video. But I wanted to stop, explain a few of the rules that maybe we've been glossing over too quickly, and just pause, and we can use this video for you guys to ask some questions if you are trying to learn the rules, and go from there. So the first thing is okay, what one of these did I eventually pick? So my choices were, I was going to choose between these two, sparing power or preparation. And this one, you get to search search your deck for any one card and put it in your hand, which means you can then have a starting hand size of 6 instead of 5. The nice thing about this is, let's say you're going to do like a battle and you're just getting ready for the next round. You could go and find that spell card you really needed. Or in my case, if I drew a bunch of wound cards, I was going to go try to find my healing card. And I actually found a healing card here. And you can see here that this is a heal 2. It could also be used to draw 2 cards or gain a green mana crystal, blah, blah, blah. And you can even ready a unit that's already been done. So what I could do is I could heal 2 here with this, which is the same as this. And then I could actually use this to ready him. It doesn't matter. Either way, this is a heal 4 situation. But what I can do is save this to use later. And then also, so here's where my thoughts were. Jason really likes that mana search because that lets us re-roll the dice. It's nighttime, so we forgot to flip this over. So let's do that. So here's the thing. I know from playing with Jason in this game that so to me, the most powerful card there is this one. So what this lets you do is, at the start of every turn, let me put it where you can read it here. At the start of each turn, you get to choose one. You put the top card of your deck face down under this card, or flip all the cards that are underneath this, and put it in your hand. So basically what you can do is you could basically, I know I just said basically 3 times, but so my hand size is 5. So every time at the start of my turn, I can put cards underneath this, and eventually it's going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 cards. Then at just the right moment, let's say I'm ready to attack a city, I can take all those cards that built up underneath this and put them all in my hand. So now I got this mega hand of maybe 10, 11 cards, and that's going to allow me to take on multiple monsters at once. You haven't seen us do that yet. Well, actually, Jason did with this, but the multiple monsters at once, it can be quite challenging, and obviously having more cards lets you mitigate that easier. This to me is the best card in the game. The problem is he thinks his card's the best card in the game. And when you're playing with him, if I choose this one, he's going to make me destroy this card. We have one more night phase, so I'm going to save it. What I'm going to do is something that seems, so with that in mind, where I don't want to get into an argument with Jason, I'm going to save this card, and what instead I'm going to do is I'm going to choose preparation, which lets me search my deck and put a card in my hand. Now, why would I do that, and what card is it that I really want? Well, one of the things I wanted was the healing card, which I got. But as you can see here, I can heal 2. And then I only have 1 wound, so I'm actually going to go through my deck and grab a wound card. And as you can see, I actually had a whole bunch of wound cards at the front of my deck, and my deck is just full of wound cards. So I went and grabbed a second wound card, added it to my hand, and the idea of this is that I'm going to now use my heal card to heal 2 wounds instead of 1. And so that helps get rid of some of these bad cards. The other key aspect of this is that there's a unit there I can attack, and etc. But then eventually I'll build up 2 more wounds, and then I can use this guy to heal 2 more. So I can get rid of 4 of them from my deck over time. The whole point of the get to go twice was for exactly this purpose. I have a really large deck because I have so many wound cards, and I wanted to be able to go twice during the daytime, and as you saw, I forgot to use it. And so I ended up having to just do some kind of retcon. So that was actually really awful on my part. Another thing is that this is in the Advanced Actions deck, Stout Resolve, so I could move, I could do all these actions, and then I may discard a wound to increase it by 1. That's actually useful when you have a lot of wound cards, like I do. And here's an even more interesting one, Peaceful Moment. I get Influence 3, and then as my action for the turn, I can get Heal 1 for each 2 influence I spend. So I can spend, basically, it's like going to a village. So, but you don't actually need to go to the village. And it gives you influence points, which is pretty cool. And then, the advanced version of it is you get Influence 6, and you still get to heal 1 for each 2 influence, or refresh a unit by playing 2 influence per level. This is a really nice card at any game that you play. But all 3 of these are amazing. Like, this one's really good too. Move 2, and then during combat, you may spend move points to get attack 1 for each movement point. So, so once you're in combat, you can then spend move points and get attack. For every move point you get, that gets converted into an attack. And the advanced one is a ranged attack, which is even cooler. All 3 of these are very nice cards, and if you're playing a game, you would definitely want those. So some of the things that I've been zooming through real quick are, in my opinion, so it's funny because I think some of you like the fact that I explain things and then others of you don't. So that's why I got this little special video, because you could just skip this entire video because there's going to be no playthrough on this video. I'm just going to explain some rules that we've been glossing over and then go from there. Okay, so first things first, I've explained it a little bit, but this one, I can hire a unit for 5 influence less. It does add 2 of the regular silver cards to our pool. This little exclamation point means that whoever I hire, this particular unit stays with me the rest of the game. I can never replace it. So the reason I've been leaving this blank is because I want an elite unit. And we finally have 2 elite units available. These are level 3 elite units. There are level 4s out there. And you can see that they have vastly superior abilities that you can get. Both of these are really nice. Whether or not I can afford them and all that other stuff, I mean, I get to take a 5 deduction. So this would only cost me 4 if I put it in that slot. So Ice and Fire Mages are basically just polar opposites. They do almost the exact same thing, almost. This one actually has a siege attack, whereas this one doesn't. But anyways, they're both really good. Having one of those is fine. But I wanted you to see that there's much better stuff out there. The Delphana Masters are considered to be one of the best. And then basically, when you activate them, you have to spend mana. That's the only problem with them. And depending on which mana you spend, you get that ability, and they can just wreck. Like this one here, the target enemy is destroyed as long as you blocked it. Now, there are enemies out there that have immunity to stuff like this, but they are very powerful. The heroes are also really powerful. But if you're invading an assault, if you're assaulting a fortress or anything that's fortified, they won't help you unless you pay 2 influence points. So that's the one problem with them. But they're really good otherwise. And what I've noticed is that they're different. So like this one here does a heal 4. The one I had actually had a block against cold fire, which is fire and ice mixed together. So I found that interesting. I didn't know that they even had that. Now, some of the thing about playing this game is you got to learn what all the different abilities are. Like this is chosen enemy loses all fortifications. What does that mean? That is awesome if you've got range attack, because fortifications blocks ranged attack. And then here, enemy loses all resistances. That can be awesome because sometimes physical resistance really hurts you. But if you can remove their resistance, then they're real easy to kill. So this sorcerer unit, in my mind, is not talked about very much, but he's one of the ones I really look for. So the Guardians are good. This is probably one of the most popular ones, is the catapults, because it provides siege attack. And siege attack, of course, can let you kill a unit before it has a chance to fire back. And then having the magic siege attack is even cooler, because if they have physical resistance, you can nail them with magic. And there's one other one I wanted to find here. Oh, this is the hero I had. So if you'll notice, this one has the cold fire block, whereas the other one had the heal. So the heroes are different. I'm seeing the catapults are the same. Here's another set of heroes that also have a different. These ones are more attacky. Was it the golems? Oh, there's another set of heroes with even more. These little Ultra Mages are pretty cool too. They're very expensive, but they can be really good. It must be the golems. Oh yeah, it is the golems. So the golems have physical resistance, and in this case, fire resistance. So let's talk about that for a second. When you take damage, that's one of the rules I wanted to cover a little more thoroughly. So let's say this guy's going to damage us, this one right here. Okay, so he's doing 4 damage to us. Now this little bloodlust thing means that he's actually going to do 8 damage to us. So we'll get into some of that, those nuances in a bit. But let's just say he's going to do 4 damage to us. You have 2 choices. You can damage your guys that are with you. You could actually wound them instead of yourself. So now what you would do is you apply the wound first, then you deduct the armor from it. So this guy, if he took the wound, you would then deduct the 4 armor from the 4 damage, and then you're at 0, and so now the attack is over, right? You absorb the whole attack. So this guy would be wounded, and in order to heal him, I have to spend 2 heal points because he's a level 2 guy. So he would cost 2 heal points to heal. That's expensive considering I have to use my advanced action here to get 2 heal points. I would have to use this bottom here plus this to get 4 heal points to heal like those Delphana Masters. Or like you can see here, this is a level 3. So if this mage were to ever take damage, it would require some significant healing points to heal them back. Now, as long as they're wounded, they can't be activated, and that stays that way. Now, at the end of the round, when they refresh, they do refresh. Like so let's say he was activated and he's wounded. I mean, it'll refresh, but the wound stays there, and you still can't use him until the wound's gone. Okay? That's the most critically important thing. Now, sometimes you will see a symbol that looks like a dagger. And that symbol means, and actually the person who has it is this guy. So you'll see this little dagger here. That little dagger means that that you can't wound your allies. You have to wound your hero instead. So it's basically he's trying to assassinate your hero. Now, there's a cool trick you can do in this game where you can use your guy, right, in the battle, let him take the wound, right? And then you could just go hire somebody else and get rid of your unit, because you can always replace your unit. And when you replace a unit that has already been used, he actually comes in refreshed. And that trick is good even if he's not wounded. So if he, is used, you can go hire a new guy, replace this one, and then the new guy comes in and he'll be refreshed. So that is a trick, especially when it's the final round of the game. You don't need to show any loyalty to your guys. You can use them, hire somebody else, throw away the ones you had, and then get a new one, and then use the new ones, okay? Now, in theory, it sounds great, but in practicality, it's really hard to hire new guys sometimes because you need the influence points. You have to be at the right hiring location. Then you need move points. So it's not always as easy as it sounds, but as far as the rules go, you're allowed to do all those things, and we've definitely been glossing over that. Now, this guy here, if I were to wound him with a 4 attack, he would take the wound and then reduce the 4 attack to 2. So there's 2 remaining. So now I would either have to wound him to absorb the next hit, which makes no sense, because if I'm going to wound him, I would just wound him, and then he would be fine. Or the other thing I can do is I can take the wound and put it on my hero, who absorbs 3 of the 4, right? So if my hero took all the wounds, I would take 2 wounds, right? So the first wound would be applied to me. I reduced a 4 down to a 1. They're still greater than 0. So then I'd have to take a second wound, and then I would subtract 3 from the 1 and finally get to 0. So I could have put 1 wound on him, and then the other wound would go on me. So I'm reducing the number of wounds I get by 1. And then he's easier to heal because he's just a level 1. So that is all within your options when you're taking damage. So now with that said, let's talk about these different monsters, because combat's something we didn't go over very well. And there's some things that I want you to understand. Also, some folks have clarified some rules for me, and I really appreciate it because the rule book is very dicey. So the first one is if you do this first mission, which is like a walkthrough mission in the game. We're not doing that first mission. It tells you to make sure that one of the units in your offer has the house, so you can recruit them at a village. But it just tells you that as part of the walkthrough. So somebody was suggesting that maybe that's a rule for all the games. I honestly don't know what the right answer is, because it is in the walkthrough, excuse me, but it's not in the rule book. So I think it was just meant for the walkthrough, that he wanted you to make sure that you had at least one unit you could recruit as part of your walkthrough. So that's why I don't do that in the game. But if any of you know for certain, or if there's a Board Game Geek clarification on it, let me know. I do play this game enough times that is a nice thing to know. The second one is somebody informed me that when I did this move somewhere here, I did like a explore action. So I moved, I think, yeah, that's what it was. I moved to here so I could explore this tile. I had extra movement points, and when he intervened and attacked me, they told me that that's immediate, and I would have lost all my movement points, and I would not have been able to reveal this. So that's good to know. And if it is in the rule book, if someone can help me find it, the rule book's not structured very well. And maybe those of you who have the newer version of the game, I heard that the rule book was revamped, and maybe that's a better read. But my version is just awful. I mean, the spot where I see that he intervened, it just says he intervenes. And so it doesn't say that I have to cancel the rest of my remaining movement or things like that. It makes sense, but like I said, I would just like to know, where the heck do I find something like that? So that's just a minor thing, but let's get into the combat stuff. So first things first, I just stubbed my toe, sorry, that hurts. Is Jason was attacking both of these. And when you are attacking more than one, you have quite a pickle, because basically it's simultaneous. So it's not like you get to do one at a time. So at the siege range phase, I can spend cards, and if I can siege both of these and kill them, then great. But if I can't, then I have to block this, I have to block that, and then I have to block that. That's 3 different blocks I have to do. And if I can't block all 3, then whatever ones I can't block, I'm then going to have to absorb damage for all 3. And then and only then do I get to do regular attacks to kill these. Now, both of these have physical resistance, which is brutal. So let's talk about some of the stuff here. So that physical resistance that you can see right here to the right of the 5, what that means is that all regular attacks are cut in half. So I would need 10 damage to kill this guy. Now let's say I have a fire attack 1. Well, the fire attack does full damage. So if I play a fire attack 1 card on him, his armor gets reduced to 4. And then I have to do physical damage for the remaining 4. So then I would need to do 8 more damage to him. So normally this guy needs 10. If I have fire attack 1, that gets reduced to 4, and then I need 8 more. So that means I'm only doing 9 damage to him to kill him. Let's say I had a fire attack 1 and an ice attack 1. I get to take 2 off of him, so now he's down to 3. And then 3 times 2 is 6. So I did the 2 magic damage to him, and then I had to do 6 more. So I only needed 8 total damage to kill him. So you can see that the number of damage you actually need to kill him depends on how much magic damage you're applying. Okay? So that's how physical resistance work. Now, if you see a fire resistance there, it's the other way around. The fire damage is cut in half, but all other damage is full. Okay? Now, this little castle just means he's fortified. And fortified means that range attack can't be used in the siege phase. You can use it during regular attack damage, but in the siege phase, when you're trying to kill him outright, you can only use siege attack on him. So that's what the fortified means. Now, the fortified applies in many places. So all keeps, which are these, all mage towers, which are, where's the mage tower? Way up here, that mage tower, those are all considered fortified. And then, of course, the city is fortified. So anything that has a wall, think of it that way. And so basically your range attack can't be used during the siege range phase. Only the siege attack works. Now, with the Lost Legion expansion, I think it was that expansion, they added walls on the map as well. So if I try to attack into this space over this wall, first of all, it increases my movement point cost by 1, and they're considered fortified. Now, this guy, I provoked him, so he came out of his wall to attack me, so there was no fortification for that battle. So it's a very nuanced thing, and you got to make sure you get it right. It's not hard, but it's just one of those little pesky rules, just like a war game, that you have to keep track of. It can be annoying. So the rulebook itself has a nice chart, and I never showed it to you, but let's talk about this chart. So first things first are the unit resistances, and so we talked about this. So the physical makes unit less vulnerable to physical attacks, etc. And so you can see that if they have both fire and ice resistance, then it counts as resistance to cold fire. Combat with enemies, you know, that have unit resistances, it tells you how to manage it. It's actually really good, this rule book. So that explains all the resistances. Now, the one thing I wanted to show you, and I forgot, is that we have resistances on our units. So I showed you a golem, for example, that has physical resistance and ice. And remember I said you always take the wound first and then you deduct this. If you have resistance, so let's say I'm taking ice damage of 4. The resistance means I reduce the attack by 4, and only if there's attack points left would I take a damage. So I could actually say, okay, I'm going to damage this guy with the ice attack of 4. He's going to absorb all 4 of it and take no damage at all. And so these guys with the resistances are much more powerful for absorbing hits. And so make sure you consider that. And these golems are perfect. I mean, they have the physical resistance, and they usually always have one more. Super nice. They're worth picking up for that reason. And yeah, and they also have some pretty decent abilities, but don't overlook them, because the ability to absorb hits will prevent you from having all these wounds in your deck like I do. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about as far as resistances go. Now, as far as everything else, we've talked a bit, and we've talked about the fire attack, ice attack, cold fire attack, which is just fire and ice together, but it is a separate type of attack. The summon we've sort of touched on, and that's you're going to draw a brown token, and all it does is it's used for the block and attack damage. Swift. So here's the thing with these, and it's sometimes easier to look at the unit itself. We had a Swift, if you recall. It's this guy. So the Swift is this little arrow-looking symbol. So they do some pretty cool things here. So this means he's going to do 7 damage to me, and I need 7 block. So let's say there was no symbol. I need to block 7, or he does 7 damage to me. So this symbol is saying you need 14 block. But if you fail to have 14 block, he's only going to do 7 damage. Okay? This little bloodlust symbol, the red skull, means I need 4 block, but if I fail to block him, he's going to do 8 damage. So you see how both of them are like doublers, but they're doublers in a different way. This one doubles the block, this one doubles the damage, okay? Now this little thing here is called cumbersome. And what that means is you can use your movement points to cancel, or you can use your movement points to, because he's so cumbersome and whatever, if you're agile and you have movement points to spend, you can use them to reduce, I think it's his block. It doesn't come up very often. So here we go. In the block phase, you may spend move points. For each movement point spent, you reduce his attack by 1 for the rest of the turn. An attack is reduced to 0 is considered successfully blocked. So you can reduce his attack and the amount of damage he does to you if you spend movement points. And here's that assassination symbol. This here is arcane immunity. And remember those Dofana mages that if you successfully block them, you kill the target? This would be immune to that. So any spell damage, not attack damage, mind you, you can still attack them. See, non-attack block effects. So anything that's attack or block still gets through, even if it's a spell. But if you have like some kind of arcane damage where you're, like you can remove their resistances or whatever, if they have this, you can't use those skills or spells on them. This means that the enemy's not fortified, even if they're behind a wall. So remember, we went through all the explanation of how it's fortified. This means they're not. Elusive, I don't know if I have one to show you, but basically, let me see if we run across an elusive yet. I'm just going to check the ones we've killed so far. Yes, we do. We have one right here. So this guy, as you can see, has the arcane immunity, and then he does a cold fire attack. But this one is, if you don't kill him in the range or siege phase, which is a 4, he becomes an 8. So if you wait until the regular attack phase to kill him, you need 8 to kill him. And it's because he has like high movement speed, or he's very elusive and agile. So as he's charging in on you, you got to hit him with your arrows and kill him. If you get up close for melee combat, you're going to need more damage to be able to take him out. So that's what that represents. So we do have a nice collection of, so we talked about that one. This is an ice attack with ice resistance. This one is the awful one that hurt Jason. Well, no, actually a different one did, but this one is paralyzed. If you can't block the Medusa, then any non-wound card in your hand is immediately discarded. So when you get to this attack phase, you have no cards left to attack her with because she turned you into stone or whatever. So these are brutal. If you see these, you have to block or you have to kill them with siege and range, or you're in trouble, okay? Those are the worst possible cards that you can get if you can't block them. This one has ice resistance, and then he'll attack you 3 separate times, and you may have recall I was explaining to Jason, you can't just have a block 6 card and block all 3 of them. If you have a block 6 card, you're only going to block 1 of them, and the rest of the remaining block points are wasted. You need 3 separate block actions, or block cards, to block all 3 of them. And then we just talked about him. So that's how a lot of this works. Now let me grab like one of the really tough ones. So this is like one of the elite ones. You can see this guy has resistance to everything. The only thing that would hurt him is cold fire. No, actually no, because he has resistance to both. He's immune to that too. He's immune to everything. So you need basically 14 to get him. And he's fortified, so you can only hit him with siege damage. So this guy is just an overall, you need 14 damage to kill him. And then of course he's going to do 6 damage to you. Thankfully there's no modifications there. So he's got a lot of armor. His attack is average. And that's one of the white tokens that you'll see when you assault a city, for example. So hopefully that's helping out with a lot of the, and we talk about the different things. The only one we haven't covered is poison. So all poison is if you take, let's say, 2 wound cards in your hand you have to also put 2 wound cards in your discard pile. So however many cards you take into your hand, you have to also put that many cards in your discard pile. And that's if you see a poison. If you take no wound cards in your hand, then you're not poisoned. Now, if you wound your units with a poison effect, then they take 2 wound cards, and you have to heal them twice before they're reusable again. So if you put poison on one of your units, you're better off to just go hire another one. I'm serious about that. It's really hard to heal your units that way. So hopefully that helped out with explaining a bit about the combat. Now, what are some of the strategies? Like, what is it that we're trying to do? Let me just start by saying that the start was brutal, because when you have really difficult terrain to move through, like swamp and desert, it slows you down. And then also the enemy units are really tough for a starting Mage Knight. They're not so tough once you get leveled up, but in the beginning, you sort of want the easier monsters to take down. And then, as you noticed, that city spawned behind all those sea zones, and I was literally standing here when I spawned it. So now I got to walk around, and then look, I got to fight a battle, fight a battle, fight a battle, just to get to the city. That is brutal, folks. I'm feeling very pessimistic about my chances of winning this game. The only other option is to go over here, explore tiles, so we can swing all the way around to get to that city. That is a difficult pill to swallow. I think there might have been something in the rules about, like, when you do the 3-column thing, that you can only put the core tiles in the middle, so you sort of have to go up the left side, up the right side, and then only core tiles go. We don't play that way. It just seems too awkward. So we're okay with the city tile being over on the left side or whatever. I think it was a suggestion. There's a lot of things also that we gloss over. So for example, villages can be pillaged. And if you pillage them, you lose reputation, but it lets you draw like an extra, I think, 2 cards in your hand. Don't quote me on that, but it lets you draw extra cards in your hand. So when you stop and end your turn in a village, you can pillage the village to get extra cards, so that way you can use it to assault whatever you're going to assault next. It's an option. You can use it as often as you'd like, and then in fact the village is unharmed the next turn. You can still use it again, and they'll even welcome you and trade with you. So your reputation goes down, but they still, let you come in and do whatever you want. Now, the mage towers and the keep, like you can see Jason took this keep. The keep lets you increase your hand size by 1 when you're next to the keep. Now, the city will count as a keep once you take it. So every unit that you kill in a city, you put one of your markers on. So this city has 3 units. So between Jason and I, let's say we both attack that city, I may have 2 of my markers there, he has 1. I'm the city leader because I have 2 markers, he has 1. Or he'd be the city leader if he had 2 markers and I had 1. The number, as long as you have 1 marker there, you get to count that city as a keep for the purposes of adding cards to your hand. And if you're the city leader, that it counts as a +2 instead of a +1. So that's one thing to bear in mind. The cities are really powerful once you can capture one. And you can get a lot of cards in your hand and do some damage to help you get the next city, right? So that's the thing. There's momentum in this game. And you want to build your momentum up so that way when you get to that final 2 rounds, the day and night cycle, you have really high hand limit size, you're drawing from a really large deck, and you're just pummeling anything you come across. You really do feel powerful by the time you get to the end of this game. But the stuff you go up against at the end is also super powerful. So that's another little quirky thing. The next thing is these little symbols up here actually try to tell you when you can use the card. The hand, so like for example, this star, you can use it anytime, even if it's somebody else's turn. The hand is just something you do. It's not an action. And I think that's a symbol for healing. This is a symbol for influence, which you can see is influence. Anyways, those are your... it's just trying to tell you when you would use those cards. And yeah, there's another influence one. I don't pay much attention to them. They can be helpful though when you're first learning how to play. The next thing is you're going to want to really study these, and these are double-sided. So, for example, the monastery, you can recruit there, you can heal. Let me make sure you're zoomed in. You can do training, and that's what we mean by these two advanced cards that are in the offer. Those are available for us to purchase at a monastery. It's just that we haven't been in one. I did pass through one. You can burn the monastery to the ground. You will have to face a violet enemy token, one of the purple ones. And you're not allowed to use your units. You can't use these guys because what you're doing is a vile act and they won't join you. If you defeat the enemy, you could put your shield token on it, and the monastery is no longer usable because it's destroyed, but you get an artifact. So obviously getting artifacts is really nice. And then, of course, the other side of this card is the village, which you can recruit, heal, and you can also plunder, and there you go. You get to draw 2 cards, and you get a reputation of -1. Okay, we did the maze. You saw how that worked, where you spend 2, 4, or 6. There's also, on the core tiles, a labyrinth, which looks like it's up in the mountain. And there you pay 2, 4, or 6, and you get better rewards. So you're going to fight a red draconium, which is a lot tougher. And you get 2 crystals, a spell, or an artifact, which is just like the maze. But in all 3 cases, you also get an advanced action, which are one of these cards. So you get a little bit more. And then you can also partially conquer it. So that's that. The ancient ruins, we've already done. Some of these you don't even have to do a battle. It depends on what it is. And you get all kinds of different rewards. And then, of course, this tells you what happens when you have a city. So right here you can see if you end your turn adjacent, your hand limit is 2 higher if you're the leader, 1 higher if you're at least 1 shield token. The one thing not written on here is you get to count all your keeps as well. And there it'll tell you if it's a fortified site. So that helps. These are real easy. You just take a crystal. This refugee camp you saw me use, depending on the recruitment location, you have to spend extra influence. And if they have multiple locations, you get to pick the cheapest one. And then here, this is telling you about the walls. And if you provoke, oh, I made a mistake. Rampaging enemies never attack you across a wall. So I played that wrong. Boy, I'm glad I looked at this. So my apologies, folks. That can't happen. The marauding orcs are these green ones. We talked about them. The draconium is just dragons that are... You get 2 reputation if you defeat them. They're just like the orcs, though, in terms of behavior. The keep, right there, fortified site. We talked about that. You lose a reputation when you attack it, but you get 1 higher card. The mage tower, also fortified. You get a spell if you conquer them. You lose a reputation for attacking. Monster Den is really 2 crystals as your reward. You have to defeat something, get 2 crystals. You also get the fame, which is good. Then the spawning grounds, which are a little tougher. You'll see these on the core. You have to face 2 enemies. You get 3 crystals and an artifact, which is awesome. Artifacts are good. And then the tomb. Now, here's the crazy thing about tomb. It's called an adventure site, and it says night rules apply. Basically, for night rules, it just simply means even if it's daytime, you're at night. So when you do a spell, you can use the black dye. So that's one of the weird times when you can use a black dye during the day. Okay. The other thing is that your units are afraid of it, and they won't go into the dungeon with you. Now, one thing special about this character I have is this guy goes with you no matter what. So you can bring him with you even when the rules say you can't. So that's the cool thing about that special guy. And yeah, the tomb is the advanced one. You're going to get a spell plus an artifact, which are both awesome. And then the dungeon is just a watered down version. But again, it's night rules. And you'll get a spell or an artifact depending on what you roll. So this one, not quite as good, but it's still can be nice and juicy. And then of course you're fighting a much harder monster. So that's all the locations really quick. But keep these in front of you and they will be your friend. Now I also have something I printed from Board Game Geek where somebody, tried to write everything down. It's actually fantastic because it tells you when is it revealed, in the day or night. So you can see like the marauding orcs, they're revealed in the daytime or the nighttime. It doesn't matter, face up. You can see that the ancient ruins there are revealed right here. They're revealed during the day, but they're not revealed during the night. So you can see like the different rules, that the kind of things that are going to hang you up on your first game. And if you fight them, what things happen. So it just tells you what color token it is. I mean, that should be pretty obvious to you. But the reward is interesting. And there's a little key legend. So an R means reputation, F is fame, blah, blah, blah. So here you get your reputation +1, reputation +2. Here you lose a reputation. And these are the mage towers and keeps. Mage tower, you get a spell as your reward. Here you lose a reputation, whether you win or lose. That's attacking a city. And then what kind of thing is it? It's an assault, which means it's fortified. And assaults, of course, are the things that the heroes won't join you on. And then if it's conquered, what happens? And then what actions can you do once it's a friendly site? So I found this to be very helpful. It just doesn't have everything. Like, for example, Volker here, his camp, once you find his camp, I don't know which one, his camp's not revealed yet, but his camp is not considered a assault. It's not a fortified site. So, for example, the heroes will help you fight him because they don't like him at all. So his battles are usually tougher than a city, but it's not considered a fortified site, so you can use your range attack in addition to your siege phase. So that's the one advantage you get against him. Make sure you take advantage of that. And then his camp, once you conquer it, it also has bonuses it gives you, and none of that's on this sheet that I have printed out. But anyways, that's a nice lengthy rules explanation. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. If there's anything else I missed, feel free to ask questions or whatever. And then, later tonight or whatever, when Jason's available and I'm done with work, we can maybe continue and hopefully wrap up this game. Thanks for watching. Stay awesome.